like to talk about some of the common mistakes that buyers make in a property transaction. And one of the big things that we see coming up quite regularly, and the attorneys will back me up on this, is that when people buy a property, they don't realize there are certain additional costs that need to be paid before a property can transfer or can go through the registration process. So what do we do when we buy a property? We work out how much money we have as a deposit. We find out how much money the bank will lend us. We put the two together and we work out a purchase price. But when it comes to transferring the property, the attorneys are going to call for certain costs before the property can proceed through registration. These costs relate to transfer duty from SARS, which gets paid to the government. It's attorney costs to register the property. And of course, if you've got a bond, there's going to be bond costs that need to be paid up front to register the bond. Now, just to give you an idea, on a 2 million rand property, you're probably looking in the area of another 120,000 rand that you as the purchaser need to pay up front before the attorney will transfer the property. So what you need to do is you need to factor these costs in terms of the deposit money that you've got. So you've either got to find more money to put down a bigger deposit, or you've got to get a bigger bond to make up that difference. But don't forget about the costs that you need to pay. If you're buying in a sectional title complex, the attorneys are also going to call for levies up front and rates up front. So factor all these costs in and get some advice from your real estate agent who will be able to help you with this information. The second common mistake that we see that buyers make all the time is that they fail to properly inspect the property before they purchase. Now understand one thing. The seller of the property has a disclosure obligation to you as the purchaser, but his disclosure is limited to latent defects or hidden defects that he is aware of. There might be a problem with the property that is not apparently obvious to the naked eye, and if the seller is aware of that defect, he has a duty to disclose that to you. But as the purchaser, whenever you sign a contract, you're warranting that you've given the property due inspection. You have taken the time to walk around and look at the door handles, to look at the taps, and to look at things that are apparently obvious. This is your duty, this is your obligation as a purchaser, and as I said, in most contracts of sale, you're going to sign that you warrant that you have had the time to inspect the property. So don't ignore this obligation. It's very, very important, because at the end of the day, you're buying a second-hand property, and there are going to be faults with a second-hand property. And then finally, the third common mistake that we find buyers making is that they fail to start negotiations in writing. Don't waste your time. Don't put in verbal offers. A verbal offer means nothing. And remember that an estate agent has a duty to take every offer to a seller, but place that offer in writing, because what it does is it starts the process of negotiation. If you come in too low, a seller can always cross out and countersign the agreement and come back to you with a preferable price for them. But until you put that in writing, this process does not begin. So put all offers in writing.